Riley Dawson had exactly 3 minutes to deliver the worst news a billionaire could hear, and she refused to sugarcoat it. "Mr. Lawson, your entire marketing campaign is a disaster," she said, standing in the glass-walled conference room of Lawson Energy Solutions, the renewable energy empire that had transformed the American power grid. "If you launch this next week, you'll lose millions in brand credibility." Sebastian Lawson, 32 years old and worth an estimated $4.7 billion according to the latest Forbes estimate, leaned back in his leather chair and studied her with dark green eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made people nervous. Riley wasn't nervous. She'd been a brand consultant for 6 years, and she'd learned early that rich men respected honesty more than flattery. "Go on," he said, his voice low and measured. Riley pulled up the presentation on the screen behind her. "Your team is marketing solar panels like they're luxury cars. That's not your demographic. The people who need affordable, renewable energy don't want to be sold exclusivity. They want accessibility, community, hope for the future. This campaign makes them feel poor, not empowered." The 3 executives flanking Sebastian shifted uncomfortably. Riley didn't care. She'd been hired specifically because her firm had a reputation for brutal honesty, and she wasn't about to waste anyone's time. Sebastian stood, walking closer to the screen. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, the kind of tailoring that cost thousands of dollars. But when he moved, there was nothing stiff about him. He had the confident ease of someone who'd built his fortune from the ground up, starting with a single patent for energy storage at 23 and expanding into an empire that now employed over 15,000 people. "Show me what you do instead," he said. Riley spent the next 40 minutes dismantling his marketing strategy and rebuilding it from scratch. She showed him footage of real families, real communities, real stories. She explained how authenticity would cut through the noise better than any glossy advertisement. And when she finished, Sebastian turned to his team. "Scrap everything, we're going with her vision." He looked at Riley. "Can you stay on through the launch? I'll triple your consulting fee." "I can give you 6 weeks, Riley said. "After that, I have another client lined up." "Then we'd better make those 6 weeks count." That was how Riley Dawson found herself spending 12-hour days at Lawson Energy Solutions, transforming their entire public image. Sebastian was demanding, detail-oriented, and surprisingly hands-on for a billionaire. He didn't just delegate and disappear. He sat in on meetings, challenged her ideas, pushed her to think bigger. "Why not both television and streaming?" he asked during a strategy session 2 weeks into the project. "Because your budget isn't infinite," Riley replied, pulling up the spreadsheet. "We can dominate streaming platforms where your target demographic actually spends their time, or we can dilute the message trying to be everywhere at once." "My budget is essentially infinite," Sebastian said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Then you're asking the wrong question. It's not about what you can afford, it's about what will actually work." Something shifted in his expression then, a new kind of interest. "You don't treat me differently, do you?" "Than what?" "Than anyone else." Riley shrugged. "You hired me to do a job. Your bank account doesn't change whether the strategy works or not." After that, Sebastian started finding excuses to work directly with her instead of through his team. He'd bring coffee to her temporary office, ask her opinion on matters that had nothing to do with marketing, stay late when she stayed late. Riley noticed, but she didn't acknowledge it. She had rules, and the most important one was simple: don't get involved with clients. Especially not billionaire clients who dated models and actresses, the kind of women whose photographs appeared in society pages. Riley had seen the articles. Sebastian Lawson, perpetual bachelor, photographed at charity galas with a different stunning woman each month. Never the same one twice. "Do you ever take breaks?" Sebastian asked one evening when the office had emptied and Riley was still hunched over her laptop, fine-tuning the script for their flagship commercial. "When the work is done," she replied without looking up. "The work is never done. That's the trap. Says the billionaire who's still here at 9 p.m. Sebastian pulled up a chair beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. I'm here because you're here. Riley's fingers stilled on the keyboard. Mr. Lawson, Sebastian. We've been working together for a month. I think we're past formalities. She finally looked at him. Big mistake. Up close, he was even more attractive than she wanted to admit. Strong jaw, dark hair that he'd run his hands through enough times that day to make it slightly messy, eyes that seemed to see straight through her professional armor. Sebastian, she said carefully, I don't mix business with anything else. What about after business? After business, I move on to the next client. That's how consulting works. And if I asked you to dinner, not as a client, as someone who finds you fascinating. Riley closed her laptop. I don't do relationships. That's not me being coy or playing hard to get. I genuinely don't date seriously. I don't have time, I don't have interest, and I definitely don't have space in my life for complications. Who said anything about complications? You're a billionaire. Everything about you is complicated, the media attention, the assumptions, the lifestyle differences. She stood, gathering her things. I like you, Sebastian. You're smart and surprisingly decent for someone with your net worth, but I'm not relationship material and you're looking for something I can't give you. She left before he could respond, and she pretended not to notice the disappointment in his eyes. The next morning, Sebastian acted like the conversation had never happened. He was professional, focused, cordial. Riley told herself she was relieved. This was better, simpler. But then little things started happening. Sebastian began sharing more about himself during their working sessions, not in a flirtatious way, but genuinely. He told her about growing up in a middle-class family in Ohio, how his father had been a factory worker and his mother a teacher. How he'd put himself through MIT on scholarships and student loans, how the first million had been the hardest because no one took a 23-year-old seriously. Money doesn't change who you are, he said one afternoon while they reviewed footage for the commercial. It just amplifies it. If you were kind before, you can be kinder with resources. If you were an asshole, you just become a richer asshole. Which one are you? Riley asked. You tell me. You're the one who specializes in reading people. Riley considered him thoughtfully. I think you're someone who built something meaningful and doesn't want to screw it up. I think you care more than you let on, and I think the bachelor reputation is partially a shield. A shield from what? From people who want you for the wrong reasons. Sebastian held her gaze. And what would be the right reasons? I don't know, I've never thought about it. Never, I told you, I don't do relationships. I've seen what happens when people lose themselves in another person. My mother did that with my father, and when he left, she was so destroyed she could barely function for years. I was 16, and I had to be the adult. I had to hold everything together. Riley looked away. I promised myself I'd never give anyone that kind of power over me. That's not love, Sebastian said quietly. That's dependency. They're not the same thing, maybe, but I'm not interested in finding out. The campaign launched 4 weeks into Riley's contract, and it was an immediate success. The commercials went viral, the authenticity resonating exactly as Riley had predicted. Orders for Lawson Energy's residential solar systems increased by 40% in the first week. The press called it a masterclass in rebranding. Sebastian took Riley and the core team out to celebrate at an upscale restaurant downtown. It should have been purely professional, but when Sebastian's hand brushed hers while reaching for the wine bottle, Riley felt electricity shoot up her arm. When their eyes met, she saw that he'd felt it too. I need some air, Riley said abruptly, excusing herself from the table. She stepped out onto the restaurant's terrace, gripping the railing and taking deep breaths. This was ridiculous. She was a 30-year-old professional who'd never let attraction interfere with work. But something about Sebastian got under her skin in a way she couldn't shake. You're not very good at hiding how you feel, Sebastian's voice came from behind her. Riley didn't turn around. I don't know what you mean, Riley. He stepped beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the day you walked into my conference room and told me my marketing was garbage. And it's not because you're beautiful, although you are. It's because you're brilliant and passionate and you don't take anyone's nonsense, including mine. Sebastian, let me finish. I know you said you don't do relationships, I heard you. But I think you're scared, and I think you're using that fear as a shield the same way you accused me of using my reputation. And maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe you genuinely have no interest in me at all, but if there's even a chance that you feel what I feel, I need to know. Riley finally looked at him. The city lights reflected in his eyes, and he looked so earnest, so different from the composed billionaire in the boardroom. What do you feel? Like I've been waiting for you without knowing it. Like every conversation we have matters more than any business deal I've ever closed. Like I want to know everything about you, not just your brilliant marketing mind, but what makes you laugh, what you dream about, what you're afraid of. He took a step closer. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated, but nothing worth having is ever simple. Riley's heart was hammering. Every instinct told her to run, to protect herself, to stick to the rules that had kept her safe for so long. But another part of her, a part she'd been ignoring for weeks, wanted to lean in. Wanted to see what would happen if she let herself feel. I have 2 weeks left on my contract, she said softly, I know, and then I'm supposed to move on. Supposed to. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be with someone without losing myself. Sebastian reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently took her hand. Then maybe we figure it out together. No expectations, no pressure. Just see what happens when you stop running. Riley looked down at their joined hands, his warm and solid around hers. What if I'm bad at this? Then you'll be bad at it. We both will. That's part of the deal. What if it doesn't work? What if it does? Riley took a shaky breath. Okay, let's try, but slowly. And if it gets weird or complicated or I start feeling like I'm losing myself, then we talk about it. We adjust, we figure it out. Sebastian squeezed her hand. I'm not your father, Riley, and you're not your mother. We get to write our own story. Their first date was on a Saturday, the first day off Riley had taken in months. Sebastian picked her up in a surprisingly modest car, a Tesla sedan rather than the Aston Martin she'd seen in his parking spot at work. Trying not to intimidate me, she asked as she slid into the passenger seat. Trying to show you that I can be normal, he replied with a grin. He took her to a farmer's market, of all places, weaving through stalls of fresh produce and handmade crafts like he did this every weekend. He probably didn't, but he made it feel natural, easy. They bought fresh strawberries and artisan bread, and Sebastian made the vendors laugh with his easy charm. You're surprisingly good at this, Riley observed as they walked, sharing the strawberries. At what? Being a person? At being present. I thought billionaires were always distracted, thinking about the next deal. Most of us are, but I learned a long time ago that money means nothing if you're not actually living your life. He glanced at her. Besides, it's easy to be present when I'm with you. You make everything more interesting. They spent the afternoon cooking together in Sebastian's penthouse, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Riley had expected something cold and modern, but his home was warm, filled with books and art and comfortable furniture that looked actually used. You cook? She asked, surprised when he started dicing vegetables with practiced efficiency. My mother insisted all her children learn. Said no one should be helpless in a kitchen regardless of gender. He handed her a bell pepper to chop. I have 2 sisters. Both of them give me endless grief about my bachelor status. Do they know about me? I may have mentioned that I met someone interesting. Riley's heart did an unexpected flip. The casualness of it, the implication that she was important enough to mention to his family, felt significant. Scary, but significant. They made pasta from scratch, flour dusting the countertops and their clothes, laughing when Riley's first attempt at shaping the dough failed spectacularly. Sebastian stepped behind her, his arms coming around to guide her hands, and Riley let herself lean back against his chest. See. "You're a natural," he murmured near her ear. "Liar. But I appreciate the encouragement." Over dinner, they talked for hours. Sebastian asked about her work, her life, her dreams beyond consulting. Riley found herself opening up in ways she rarely did, telling him about her childhood, about raising herself when her mother checked out emotionally, about the satisfaction she got from helping companies find their authentic voice. "You ever want to start your own company?" Sebastian asked. "Sometimes, but consulting gives me variety. I get bored easily." "Is that why you don't do relationships?" "Boredom." Riley set down her wine glass. "Partially, but also control. When you're on your own, you make all the decisions. You don't have to compromise or negotiate or risk someone else's choices destroying your life." "That sounds lonely." "It's safe." Sebastian reached across the table, taking her hand. "What if safe isn't the same as happy?" Riley didn't have an answer for that. The next 2 weeks blurred together in the best way. Riley finished her contract with Lawson Energy, delivering a comprehensive strategy guide for the next year. But now, her days had Sebastian woven through them. Coffee before work meetings. Lunch stolen between conference calls. Dinners that stretched late into the night, talking about everything and nothing. He introduced her to his world gradually, never overwhelming her. A quiet dinner with his 2 closest friends, both engineers who'd worked with him since the early days. A casual charity event where he donated a substantial check but spent most of the evening at Riley's side, keeping the attention off her when he sensed she was uncomfortable. "You're good at this," Riley said as they drove home that night. "At what?" "Reading me. Knowing when I need space, when I need support. It should feel suffocating, but it doesn't." Sebastian glanced at her, his expression soft in the streetlights. "That's because I'm not trying to control you, Riley. I'm trying to know you. There's a difference." Riley felt something crack open in her chest, something that had been locked tight for years. "I think I'm falling for you," she whispered, "and it terrifies me." Sebastian pulled the car over, parking along a quiet stretch of road overlooking the river. He turned to face her fully. "Do you want to know what terrifies me? The idea that you might run because you're scared, that you'll sabotage this because it's easier than trusting." "I don't know how to trust," Riley admitted, her voice breaking slightly. "Yes, you do. You've been trusting me for weeks now. Every time you let me in a little more, every time you choose to stay instead of running, that's trust." He cupped her face gently. "I'm falling for you too, Riley. I'm already there, honestly. And I know that's fast and I know it's intense, but I've never been more sure of anything." "What if I mess this up?" "Then we'll figure it out together." That's what people do when they care about each other. They work through the messy parts. Riley kissed him then, pouring all her fear and hope and tentative trust into it. Sebastian responded with a tenderness that made her chest ache, holding her like she was precious, like she mattered more than anything else in his world. When they finally pulled apart, Riley was crying. "I don't cry," she said, laughing shakily. "You're allowed to feel things. It doesn't make you weak." "I'm not used to this, being vulnerable." "I know, we'll take it at your pace." But Riley was discovering that her pace was changing. The more time she spent with Sebastian, the more she wanted. More conversations, more laughter, more quiet moments of connection. He was patient with her fears, never pushing, but always there when she reached out. 3 months into their relationship, Sebastian took her to Ohio to meet his family. Riley was nervous in a way she'd never been before a meeting, but his parents welcomed her warmly. His mother, Claire, was a sharp woman with kind eyes who clearly saw through any pretense. "So you're the one who's got my son completely smitten," Claire said, while they were preparing dinner together. Sebastian having been dragged outside by his father to look at some construction project. "I don't know about smitten," Riley replied, chopping vegetables. "Oh, he is. I've never seen him like this. Usually he keeps people at arm's length, even the women he dates. But with you, he's different, open, happy." Claire studied her. "You're scared of that." Riley's hands stilled. "Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been paying attention. You love him, but you don't trust it yet." "I don't know how," Riley admitted quietly. I've spent so long protecting myself. Claire set down her own knife and turned to face Riley fully. Can I tell you something? Love isn't about losing yourself, it's about finding someone who helps you become more yourself. A good partner doesn't diminish you, they amplify the best parts of you while supporting you through the worst parts, she smiled. My son isn't perfect. He works too much, he's stubborn, and he thinks he can fix everything with enough determination. But he's loyal, he's kind, and when he loves someone, he loves with his whole heart. The question is whether you're willing to accept that. Riley felt tears prickling her eyes again. What if I'm not enough for him? What if you are? What if you're exactly what he needs and you're exactly what you need, and all this fear is just wasting time you could be spending being happy? That night, lying in the guest room of Sebastian's childhood home, Riley stared at the ceiling and let herself imagine a future. Not just the next few months, but years. A life built with Sebastian, with trust and partnership and love. It didn't look like the destructive dependency she'd witnessed growing up. It looked like two whole people choosing each other day after day. The realization didn't come as a thunderbolt. It was quiet, certain, settling into her bones like truth. She wanted this. She wanted him. And more importantly, she wanted to be brave enough to try. The next morning, she found Sebastian on the back porch with coffee, watching the sunrise over the Ohio farmland where he'd grown up. Hey, he said softly, pulling her into his side when she sat down. Sleep okay? I had a revelation, Riley said. Good revelation or terrifying revelation? Both, she took a breath. I love you, and I'm done being scared of it. I'm still going to mess up, and I'm still going to struggle with trust sometimes, but I want this. I want us. Sebastian turned to face her fully, his eyes bright with emotion. Yeah, you were right. What we have is worth the risk. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, he was grinning. You know what this means? What? You're stuck with me now. I'm very committed once I commit, Riley laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. I think I can handle that. 6 months later, Riley moved into Sebastian's penthouse, combining their lives in ways that felt natural rather than forced. She continued consulting, but became more selective about her clients, choosing projects that excited her rather than just filling her schedule. Sebastian made space for her work, respecting her need for independence while building a life together. They traveled, exploring places neither had seen before. They hosted dinners for friends and family, their home becoming a gathering place. They fought occasionally, learning each other's triggers and communication styles, but they always worked through it. You know what I realized? Riley said one evening, curled up on the couch with Sebastian while rain pattered against the windows. What's that? This doesn't feel like I'm losing myself. It feels like I'm finding parts of myself I didn't know existed. The parts that can trust, that can be vulnerable, that can build something with someone else. Sebastian pressed a kiss to her temple. That's because love isn't about losing yourself. It's about being yourself with someone who loves every version of you. A year and a half after Riley had walked into that conference room and told Sebastian his marketing was garbage, he took her back to the farmer's market, where they'd had their first date. They wandered through the stalls like they had before, but this time, Sebastian led her to a quieter section near a fountain. I have something to ask you, he said, taking both her hands in his. Riley's heart started racing. Sebastian, I know you spent years believing you didn't want this. That relationships meant losing yourself, that love was dangerous. And I know I'm probably supposed to make some grand gesture with photographers and crowds, but that's not us. He smiled, his eyes crinkling. We're two people who found each other despite all the reasons we shouldn't have worked. You challenge me, you ground me, you make me better. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that love doesn't have to be scary. It can be safe and exciting all at once. He dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, elegant and simple, exactly Riley's style. Will you marry me? Riley was crying again, but this time she didn't care. Yes, absolutely yes. The wedding was small and intimate 8 months later, held in Claire's garden in Ohio with just family and close friends. Riley wore a simple white dress, and Sebastian couldn't stop staring at her like she was the most incredible thing he'd ever seen. "I can't believe I'm doing this," Riley whispered to him before they walked down the aisle together, having decided that the traditional separate entrance felt wrong for them. "Having second thoughts?" Sebastian asked, though his tone was teasing. "No, I'm just amazed that I get to. That I'm not too scared anymore. You're the bravest person I know," he said seriously. "It takes courage to let someone in, to trust, to love. I learned from the best." They built a life together that neither had imagined before they met. Riley started her own consulting firm with Sebastian's encouragement, focusing on companies that were trying to make a genuine difference. Sebastian continued expanding Lawson Energy, but he also scaled back his hours, prioritizing time with Riley over constant work. 2 years into their marriage, they bought a house outside the city, something with space to grow. When Riley told Sebastian she was pregnant, he lifted her up and spun her around, laughing with pure joy. "We're having a baby," he said in wonder. "We're having a baby," Riley repeated, and for the first time in her life, the idea of family didn't fill her with dread. It filled her with hope. Their daughter, Lily, was born on a sunny morning in May, with Sebastian holding Riley's hand through every moment. When they placed the baby in Riley's arms, she looked down at the tiny, perfect face and felt something shift fundamentally inside her. "I used to think love made you weak," she said softly, with Sebastian's arm around her shoulders as they both gazed at their daughter. "But this feels like the strongest thing I've ever done. Choosing to love you, choosing to build this family, choosing to trust." "You've always been strong," Sebastian said. "You just had to learn that strength doesn't mean being alone." Riley looked up at him, this man who had patiently dismantled every wall she'd built, who had shown her that love could be safe and wild and steady all at once. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Never. You're worth every moment of patience, every conversation, every step of this journey." He kissed her forehead. "You're my everything, Riley." Lily squirmed in Riley's arms, making a tiny sound, and they both laughed, enchanted by this new person they'd created together. Years later, when Lily asked how her parents met, Riley would tell her the truth. That she'd once believed relationships were dangerous, that love meant losing yourself, that staying independent was the only way to stay safe. And then she'd met a billionaire who taught her that the right person doesn't diminish you. They amplify you. They give you space to be yourself while building something beautiful together. "So you didn't want to fall in love?" Lily would ask, her eyes wide. "I thought I didn't," Riley would say. "But sometimes the best things in life are the ones we never expected. The ones that scare us until we're brave enough to embrace them." And she'd look at Sebastian, still finding new ways to love him after all these years, still grateful that she'd taken the risk. That she'd chosen trust over fear, connection over isolation, love over safety. Because in the end, the safest place she'd ever been was in his arms, building a life they both treasured. And that was worth more than all the protection in the world.